Welcome back to the Evolution of the Soul series. I'm Cheryl Arts at Willow Roots, and today I'm talking about getting out of the way. And I'll explain that about getting out of the way of other people and getting out of the way of ourselves. And I'm going to relate that to alchemical healing. So that's the modality that I offer, energy healing. It's an incredible energy healing modality. And so I'll just, explain that in the way, and then I'm going to relate it to life because so much of alchemical healing is a way of life. It's not just a modality that you learn, it's not just a healing that you can receive, but if you follow the principles and kind of the elements within alchemical healing, it's an incredible way to live your life. And so I'll just start by saying, and I like to joke about this, but that I am a recovering A-type person. So someone who likes to know what's going to happen, likes to have control, likes to plan, likes to organize. And in this realm, that none of that happens. And so it's still a practice for me to continually let go of control. And I think, that's how we'll step into that a little bit more as I relate that to life. But when you come to an alchemical healing session, one of the most important jobs for me is to get out of the way so that the magic can unfold, so that the healing can happen in the way that is best for the person that comes to see me. And, if I have preconceived ideas, I obviously will set an intention. So intentions are very powerful. I set an intention that whatever happens is for the highest good of the person that I'm working with, for the collective and the community as well at large. And so setting that intention really sets the framework. So I'm not just opening it up to anything. I want to ensure that the best and highest good happens for the person that sees me. And I have lots of skills so I don't just, completely wing it. So I'm bringing in the skills that I was taught and the rules and the principles and all those beautiful things. But one of the most important pieces is for me to also hold space for the magic and to let that flow in the way that it's meant to. And it happens in many, many beautiful things. But I'll just share a story about how I learned this lesson very early on in my career as an energy healing practitioner. And it was around someone who had cancer. So I hadn't been healing very long. And a friend of mine approached me about her mom who was going through cancer treatment. And I was very keen to help her. And in my mind, I was like, I'm going to cure her of cancer. And I'm going to do really good things, which is not a bad intention. It's not a bad intention when you want to help somebody. Of course it is. But it actually, when I explain it, it wasn't actually what I was there to do. And so it was really beautiful. I would meet with this woman once a week. So she would have her chemo or her treatment on Monday, and then I would see her Friday because we want to make sure that I'm not interfering with the medicine that is working. And I came and I felt like I was just cleansing out her liver, cleansing out her body from the kind of debris or anything else that was left over that wasn't needed in her body. And at the end of her treatments, she looked better than when she did when she started. She looked amazing. Was diagnosed as in remission, so beautiful success. And I was like, wow, this is, my ego was like, I was thinking that this was, a, following in the line that I was going to help her cure her cancer. And so a couple months went by. We took a little break over the summer. And the next time I saw her, I knew something had shifted. Things were different. I couldn't pinpoint it, but something had really, really shifted. And to the point where she ended up in the hospital. I visited her, and then she ended up in hospice. And I was there on the day that she transitioned. It was so hard. It was the first and only, well, it's this, I guess, yeah, the very first client that I've ever lost. And I just, with tears in my eyes, I was just sending so much love and light into her. on that final day that she was physically here. And, I've come to realize in that space that my job wasn't to heal her from her cancer, it was to make the last few months of her life amazing, that she felt the best she could feel to do the things she was called to do in the last time that she had. So you can see that I was getting in the way. So even if you kind of get in the way a little bit, typically, things will turn out the way they are supposed to. I didn't interfere with her timeline or her plan that she had and her contract that she had here. But it probably could have been more magical if I just got out of the way. I just need to get, see, we have to step out of the way of what is meant to happen. And when we do that, it opens up a space for miracles. It opens up a space for divine intervention. And so when I do this in my healing work, the amazing and beautiful things that I see, and you don't have to tell me about them. They will just come in the way they're magically meant to come in. And so, for some people, they'll come in and like, oh, my back really hurts, can we work on my back? I'll say absolutely, but I won't start there unless I'm guided to. I work very intuitively. So I will work where the energy tells me to work. And maybe there's some other things underneath that will help us heal that piece. So maybe there's a few things that need to release and let go, and then we can deal with the back. And so if I go straight in, I might miss something. So I always leave it up to connecting with the spirit world, connecting with my intuition, but also the client's intuition to help us in that space. And it's really a place of surrendering as a client on the table and surrendering as a practitioner. And, again, I said that, I was an A-type, loved to plan and loved to know what was going to happen. And I think, this day and age that we live in, there's a lot of anxiety. Everybody had, like, so many people, whether, they're diagnosed or not, or they even know it, have anxiety. And that's about thinking in the future, planning, having expectations, and wanting to have control. And this place I'm telling you to go to, getting out of the way, is not any of those things. And I want you to think about, as I'm talking about this, some of the most magical days that you've ever had. Some of those days or moments when you just felt so alive and felt so amazing. And I bet you that those were unplanned. Those were days or moments you did not have expectations. You just let go and surrendered to the moment. You didn't look at your watch. You were present. You were completely present in that moment. I go back and think about some of my most incredible days. And I think about this one where it was a Saturday and I was going to help my cousin move out of her home. She was going to move some stuff to her grandmother's house. She was leaving a relationship that she'd been in for a number of years. And so I went to support her and help her. And I remember telling my partner at the time, yeah, I'm gonna just be gone for a few hours, then I'm gonna go to work. I'm gonna go work for a couple hours and dot, dot, dot. Well, what ended up happening is that we ended up in her garage and we ended up talking. We ended up talking. I think there was some alcohol involved. This is 20, 30 years ago. Might have cracked open a bottle of rye and just started talking. And we didn't have a watch. We didn't have phone. Like I did have a cell phone back then, but I don't know. It was probably in my car. We didn't rely on it, right? We didn't always, so somebody wasn't beeping me every 5 minutes. And time just flew away on us. We were completely present, having incredible discussion, having incredible talks and laughing, and to the point that when we did realize what time it was, I think it was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'd been there for 5 hours or something. I can't remember. We looked out, there was like a foot of snow on the ground. We had no idea it was even snowing. And I think about that time and I think, wow, like I just got lost in the moment. I was so completely present. And the magic of that day was just that presence, but also that connection with my cousin and just being. And that, we're in a society, we're in a place where that just doesn't happen anymore. More and more people I see even have, we have our phones, but we also have that right on our wrists, so that anytime what someone gets a hold of you, beep beep, that's going off, and we're constantly in the stimulation of being somewhat controlled by that because we want to respond to people and people are expecting responses, and so we're living in this society that's really planned. I was thinking about even Google Maps, great resource, or any of the maps, really great resource, love it, use it all the time, but it doesn't leave space to just get lost, to just, trust your intuition. I had a client come just recently, and I heard her husband I forget where they went, and they didn't use a map. It was like across the country or something like that. And it just sounded so magical to me because just getting out of the way, getting things out of your way to just be. And guess, who knows? Like there's magic that happens if we don't plan it. We don't have expectations. We just surrender and just be, and we be in the present moment. I think I brought in the word expectation. It probably deserves its own video just on expectations, but I think expectations really kill so many different things in our lives. And, it's good to have certain expectations, but to an nth degree, if we have expectations of how somebody's going to respond to something, we are likely going to be disappointed. I've seen it time and time again where somebody, builds this thing up and they have this big surprise for someone and they, offer it to them and the reaction from the person isn't what they expected. And then they're disappointed, right? Or that you have these big plans and we're going to do this and this and this, and you build it up in your mind. But when the event actually happens, it's not quite what you thought, and it could be a letdown. Whereas you open yourself to the magic, allow things to unfold, don't try to control it, allow it to be what it's meant to be, and that's a scary and vulnerable place. It's a scary and vulnerable place, 100%. And for me, I live in that space. And, even offering these videos, I often have an idea, but I allow things to be channeled through. And that is a vulnerable space. When I do healing circles, I often don't know, and this what drives the recovering A-type crazy, excuse me, is that I often don't know what's going to happen. Sometimes, I get a couple ideas, I get a couple of intuitive hits, so I kind of have an idea, but sometimes I have no idea until that moment. And I just have to trust. I have to trust and surrender that whatever is going to be offered at that healing circle, whatever meditation or healing modality that comes through is the right for the people that gather in that moment. And again, I get nervous about that, but the more I do it, the more time I spend in that space and just allow things to happen, allow myself to get out of the way, like you really letting go of the ego, letting go. It is a really, really beautiful space to be in. And like I said, it's where the magic happens. And so I'll just go back to one of the things I said earlier. Excuse me, I got a frog in my throat. Excuse me. Is that intention is important. So maybe instead of expectation, we focus on intention. So instead of expecting your in-laws to be polite and nice and, all those different things when you go to visit them, maybe it is intentions that you're going to feel good, you're going to feel safe, you're going to have a really great discussion and interaction. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you expect people not to be so kind. They've probably given you reason for that. But when you expect that, then maybe you're going to manifest that too. So intention is a little bit different. Intention has a little bit, like if you really sit with expectation and intention, intention has a different energy. So setting an intention around it, that everything happens for the highest good, that, you feel safe and protected and that, it's a good interaction, that type of thing. So I just want you to again to think about those moments that feel the most amazing, that were unplanned, unscheduled. And I bet you, those were the moments where you completely let go, that you were completely present. And, there's lots of books about being in the present moment, but it's really hard to understand if we've constantly been in a space where we're either thinking about the past or we're always worried or concerned about the future. And so that present moment, being fully present, is an elusive place that I think we need to return to. That's part of that evolution that we're going through, is to be more present, being way more present. And so anyways, hopefully this hits you in the right spot. Those who are watching this or listening to this, that you receive what you're meant to receive from this. Again, I was getting guidance to offer this today, so I'm not sure who this is for, but anyways, I hope that this hits you in a way, sorry, you receive it in a way that is, the most appropriate for you. And so I want to thank you for joining me today, and we'll see you soon.